this light I'm running, out of darkness, out of shame. By the cross you are the truth, you are the life, you are the way. I once was fatherless, a stranger with no hope. Your kindness wakened me from my sleep now. Your love, it beckons deeply, a call to come and die. By grace now I will come and take this life, take your life. Sin has lost its power, death has lost its sting, and from the grave you've risen victoriously. Into marvelous light I'm running, out of darkness, out of shame. By the cross you are the truth, you are the life, you are the way. My dead heart now is beating, my deepest stains now clean. Your breath fills up my lungs, now I'm free, now I'm free. My dead heart now is beating, my deepest stains now clean. Your breath fills up my lungs, now I'm free, now I'm free. Sin has lost its power, death has lost its sting. From the grave you've risen victoriously. Into marvelous light I'm running, out of darkness, out of shame. By the cross you are the truth, you are the life, you are the way. Lift my hands and spin around, see the light that I found. Oh, a marvelous light, it's Christ in you. Lift my hands and spin around, see the light that I found. Oh, a marvelous light, marvelous light. Into marvelous light I'm running, out of darkness, out of shame. By the cross you are the truth, you are the life, you are the way. From the highest of heights to the depths of the sea, creation's revealing your majesty. From the colors of fall to the fragrance of spring, every creature unique in the song that it sings. incomparable. You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You are amazing, God. Incomparable, unchangeable. You see the depths of my heart and you love me the same. You are amazing, God. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker,
This part I will enjoy. I do enjoy this part. So, yes. Huh? What? Huh? I do enjoy this part, Bible study. This is my favorite. This is my favorite thing to do. Like, if I get free time, I love sitting and reading my Bible. I love learning and growing. I was really blessed to get to go to an awesome college, Oklahoma Baptist University, and sit under brilliant professors and learn from them. And they taught me how to read more effectively. And I hope that the more time we spend together, the better Bible reader you become through what you learn here and in our smaller group settings. Speaking of OBU, we very possibly might have 2 OBU students coming next week and helping lead through teaching and through song. I've asked Tyson and Reagan to come back after 6 weeks away at college, to come back and teach and to help lead worship. I already got an affirmative from Tyson. It's Reagan's birthday today, and she's very busy. But if you get a chance after church, make sure, if you have Reagan's number, if you know who I'm talking about, text Reagan happy birthday. Reagan, if you happen to catch this, happy birthday, sister. We love you. So we are hoping that they will be back here next week to help lead in worship and lead through teaching. I'm going to read to you the entire second chapter of the book of Daniel. I need all of you to focus up and to listen. I'm going to ask you to pay attention and see if there is one word that sticks out above the rest of the words in this passage. It is used over and over and over again, and that's what I want to highlight tonight. If you don't catch this part, if you don't catch this word, I'm going to tell you what the answer is, because you will need to recognize this word and to see how many times it's used in order to really grasp this passage. Daniel chapter 2. I'm going to read the entirety of the second chapter of Daniel. So if you go to Daniel and then you go to chapter 2, you'll find it. No, the second chapter of Daniel. So, Daniel chapter 2, there is no second Daniel. The only book of Daniel, chapter 2. We're going to start in verse 1. If you do not have a Bible in front of you, pay attention and just listen. Give me your full focus, give me your ears, and capture this. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled, and his sleep left him. Then the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans be summoned to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. When the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The word for me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your houses shall be laid in ruins. But if you show the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and its interpretation. They answered a second time and said, Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show its interpretation. The king answered and said, I know with certainty that you are trying to gain time, because you see that the word from me is firm. If you do not make the dream known to me, there is but one sentence for you. You have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time change. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me its interpretation. This is verse 10. The Chaldeans answered the king and said, There is not a man on earth who can meet the king's demand, for no great and powerful king has asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. The thing that the king asks is difficult, and no one can show it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. Because of this, the king was angry and very furious, and commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be destroyed. So the decree went out, and the wise men were about to be killed, and they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. Then Daniel replied with prudence and discretion to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He declared to Arioch, the king's captain, Why is the decree of the king so urgent? Then Arioch made the matter known to Daniel, and Daniel went in and requested the king to appoint him a time that he might show the interpretation to the king. Verse 17. Then Daniel went to his house and made the matter known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, also known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, his companions, and told them to seek mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his companions might not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision of the night. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have made known to me what we asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's matter. Therefore Daniel went into Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him, Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus to him, I have found among the exiles from Judah a man who will make known to the king the interpretation. The king declared to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Are you able to make known to me the dream that I have seen and its interpretation? Daniel answered the king and said, No wise men, enchanters, magicians, or astrologers can show to the king the mystery that the king has asked. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head as you lay in bed are these. To you, O king, as you lay in bed came thoughts of what would be after this. And he who reveals mysteries made known to you what is to be. But as for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because of any wisdom that I have more than all the living, but in order that the interpretation may be made known to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your mind. Verse 31, You saw, O king, and behold, a great image. This image, mighty and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. The head of this image was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold all together were broken in pieces, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them could be found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Verse 36, This was the dream. Now we will tell the king its interpretation. You, O king, the King of kings, in whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power and the might and the glory, and into whose hand he has given, wherever they dwell, the children of man, the beasts of the field, and the birds of the heavens, making you rule over them all. You are the head of gold. Another kingdom inferior to you shall rise after you, and yet a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And there shall be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, because the iron breaks to pieces and shatters all things. And like iron that crushes, it shall break and crush all these. And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom, but some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with the soft clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle. As you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. Just as you saw that a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, a great God has made known to the king what shall be after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation sure. Verse 46, Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and paid homage to Daniel, and commanded that an offering and incense be offered up to him. The king answered and said to Daniel, Truly your God is God of gods and Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this mystery. Then the king gave Daniel high honors and many great gifts, and made him rule over the whole province of Babylon, and chief prefect over all the wise men of Babylon. Daniel made a request to the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel remained at the king's court. All right, I know that's long. That took almost 10 minutes to read, but it is important, I promise. I want you to raise your hand if a specific word stuck out to you. There's about 3 words that are used like over 20 times. Jalen, I'll give you one word. Huh? Dream. That's a good word. That's one of the good words. King. What's another one? Interpretation. Those are the 3 words that are used over and over and over again. King is what I want to highlight right now. King is used. Did anybody count as we went? Did anybody count how many times king was used? It's 40. It's used over 40 times in this passage. King, 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 over and over again. 40 times in 49 verses. In 49 verses, the word king is used 40 times. And if you have a physical Bible in front of you, almost every single time that word is used, it is lowercased. It's lowercased. Lowercase k, lowercase ing. Lowercased. There's 2 times where it's used, and it's capitalized, and it immediately precedes the word Nebuchadnezzar. It is being used in the context of a proper noun, and so it is capitalized. King Nebuchadnezzar. It's just as if his name is king for a moment. It is used to identify which king we're talking about. It's being used in the context of a proper noun, therefore it's capitalized. But every other time when they are referring to King Nebuchadnezzar, they call him king, lowercase k. Over and over again, O king, lowercase k. The king's dream, lowercase k. Make known the interpretation to the king, lowercase k. Over and over and over again, lowercase k. This sounds absolutely ridiculous. You're like, this is not English class, Caleb. I don't care whether it's uppercase or lowercase. It matters, and I'll tell you why. If you have your Bible in front of you, go to verse 47. The king, Nebuchadnezzar here, the king, lowercase k, answered and said to Daniel, truly your God, capital G, is God of gods, capital G, lowercase g, and Lord of kings, capital L and Lord, lowercase k in kings. If you go all the way to Revelation chapter 17, God is identified as the capital K king over all of the lowercase k kings. Now, you might not think this sounds very important, but it is extremely important. What kind of a God do we serve? We serve the God who is above all other gods because he is the only one who exists. We serve the king who rules over all other kings. He has ultimate authority. Now listen, why is this important? Why is it important that I just read for 10 minutes so that you could get the difference between a capital K and a lowercase k? Because God is in charge. He is in charge of all things. You are not the authority that gets to tell God what to do. You are not the authority. The mayor of this town, the governor of this state, the president of this country is not an authority over God. God rules over all of us. He is in charge. Now listen, Nebuchadnezzar at this time is probably the most powerful person in the world. Nebuchadnezzar has conquered lands and he has subdued a great number of people. He is a military tactician who has literally dominated all other civilizations at this time that are in his area of the world. He has conquered this area of the world. He is a powerful, powerful man. And in a dream, God scares him almost to death. This powerful man has a nightmare. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure none of you have small children, youth-wise. Those adults in the room, have your children ever come in the middle of the night terrified because of a dream that they had had? Yes, most of you have had that experience. Your kids have come in crying, absolutely terrified. Those of you who have little siblings, you probably know what I'm talking about. Or if you have you have little cousins, or maybe you have older siblings that have young kids, and so you have nieces and nephews. You know what it's like to see a child absolutely terrified about a nightmare that they've had. This is the most powerful man on the planet, and God gave him a bad dream that scared him terribly. I don't know about you, but I would be shocked if Joe Biden got on TV and told us about his nightmares. I would be shocked. He's not going to do it. Is whatever you think about him, he's not going to get on TV. Shh. He's not going to get on TV and talk about his nightmares. It would make him seem weak. King Nebuchadnezzar was so troubled that he did not care how weak it made him seem. He wanted to know what his dream was all about. It scared him so badly that he would do anything to find out what happened. And so we talked about dream and interpretation. And so basically what Nebuchadnezzar does, listen to me. Nebuchadnezzar calls in all of the wisest people from the land. And he said, I want you to tell me what my dream means. And they say, okay, what was the dream? He said, I'm not going to tell you what my dream was. And they were like, we can't do an interpretation if we don't know what the dream is. He goes, this terrified me so much. I want to know that you're credible. You need to be able to tell me what my dream was, and you need to be able to tell me its interpretation. And so obviously, they're not going to be able to do that. Like, King, that's impossible. We can't do that. We cannot tell you. So, Ivan, imagine we talk next week and you come up to me and you say, hey, I had a dream last night. Can you tell me what it means? And I go, Ivan, what was your dream? And you go, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to go, Ivan, I can't tell you what your dream means. For one, I don't interpret dreams. But even if I did, if you didn't tell me what the dream was, I couldn't tell you what it meant. I couldn't. I wouldn't know what the dream was. I'd probably guess wrong. The chance of me getting it right are infinitesimally small. And so all of these brilliant men stand before the king and they say, King, we have no answer. He goes, okay, it's time for you to die. That's what he said. And so he sent his captain out and he says, go kill all the people that claim to be wise men. They're fools. They can't help me in my time of need. Daniel, this guy that we were introduced to in the previous chapter, he says, I can tell you what your dream is. I can't do it because I'm so wonderful. He said, but I'm going to ask God to tell me what he said to you. And then I'll tell you what he meant. There's a confidence in Daniel because he spends time with the Lord. He's faithful and true, and he's consistent. And so he knows. He says, God, I need you to tell me what the king's dream is. And then he gathers his friends. He says, guys, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, pray with me. Seek the Lord with me. Let's figure out what's going on in our kingdom. And so they gather together and they pray and God answers them. And so this Daniel, this nobody from he's an exile. That's what he's identified as. He is an exile from the land of Judah. This isn't even his home. This isn't even his country. And he stands before the most powerful man in the world and he says, King, I know exactly what your dream was. And then he tells him what the dream was. He said there's going to be basically a giant statue, a giant figure. It's going to be gold, and then silver, and then bronze, and then iron and clay. And he says, this thing seems exceedingly terrifying. It's a terrifying statue, but there's going to be a rock that is cut out of a mountain, and it is going to destroy that statue. And then that rock that destroyed the statue is going to grow into a giant mountain. And then he goes on to tell the king that statue and those 5 different layers represent 5 different kingdoms. You're the first kingdom, king. Your kingdom is coming to an end. Listen to me. He tells King Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful man in the world, who just threatened to kill all of the smart people, he tells him, he says, your kingdom is coming to an end. You're going to be humiliated. God has given you so much authority and you've wasted it. He's given you authority over man. He's given you authority over beast. He's given you authority over land, and you use it to honor yourself. And God is going to judge you, and he's going to destroy your kingdom. And he's going to destroy all of the kingdoms that come after you. And what he's going to do is he's going to set up a kingdom, and that kingdom is never going to pass away. It's going to have a king who lives forever. Now, King Nebuchadnezzar doesn't know who that future king is. But I hope you know what king Daniel is talking about. When Daniel says a rock is going to destroy that giant statue, and he is going to judge all of the kingdoms. He's going to judge all of the nations. He's going to set up a kingdom that lasts forever. And there is going to be one king who sits on the throne, and everyone will answer to him. I hope you realize that that king's name is Jesus. the king that will judge all other kingdoms, the king that will set up a kingdom that never passes away, is Jesus Christ. This is the most important name you can possibly know. Jesus. I want to tell you for just 2 minutes who this Jesus is. Jesus is God. I don't want to confuse you, but we serve a God that is a triune God. He is 3 persons in one. He is God the Father, He is God the Son, and He is God the Spirit. Jesus is God the Son. And about 2,000 years ago, pay attention. Don't be looking at your electronics. About 2,000 years ago, Jesus left heaven and He came to earth. And He didn't come like they thought He was going to come. He didn't come down like a giant rock and just destroy the whole world and judge all the kings in that moment. He came down as a man. He was born of a virgin. His mother was Mary. His father was Joseph. He had brothers and sisters. He was a carpenter. He seemed like a normal man, but there was something very special about him. This Jesus was God in the flesh, and He lived a perfect, sinless life. And after about 30 years, He called 12 men to follow Him. And He said, I've come to fulfill a really important task. I've come to pay for your sin. And if you've ever been to kids camp, you know that sin is anything we think, say, do, or don't do that displeases God. All of us have thought, said, done, and not done things that displease God. We are all sinners. Every one of us is broken in sin. And that's terrifying news until you realize that Jesus has come to save. This king that we're talking about, who has all authority, has authority to save you. He's bigger than your sin. He's paid for it on a cross. This amazing Jesus who called these 12 disciples, who told them, I've come to save you. He eventually is accused of wrongdoing that He did not commit. He is dragged into court. He is brutally beaten. And eventually He is hung on a cross, publicly shamed for all people to see. And He hung on that cross, and He was up there because He wanted to be there, and that doesn't make any sense to me. He was up there because He wanted to be there. And God poured out His wrath. And wrath is what God has for sinners and for sin. It is the punishment for our wrongdoing. And Jesus took that wrath. He took that punishment for all of the things that I have thought, said, done, or not done that have displeased the Lord. He took all of that on Himself. He was killed. He died. He was buried in a tomb known to the public. And on the 3rd day, He rose from the dead. And I'm not talking like His spirit came to life. I'm talking like His body came to life. It was a physical, bodily resurrection, but it's a better body. And I don't have time to explain that. But it's important and it's wonderful. So this resurrected Jesus comes back to His disciples. He spends about 40 days with them, and then He meets them on a mountain, and He says, now go into all the world and make disciples. Tell everybody this good news, and I'm going to be with you the whole time. But He starts that statement with, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Why does Jesus have all authority? Because He's the King. He's the King that's talked about here in Daniel chapter 2. He is the King who reigns forever. He is the God of gods. He is the Lord of kings. He is the one who is in charge of me, and He's the one who is in charge of you, and He deserves our worship. I hope you're hearing what I'm saying. I know that I've talked a lot tonight, but I hope you heard that. Jesus is the one who's talked about here in Daniel chapter 2. He's the one who rules the nations. He is the one you will stand before one day and give an account. I know some of you have questions about that, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to respond. We don't have a lot of time, and we need to go. If you have questions or concerns or thoughts, or you want to talk about salvation, or you want to ask questions about Jesus, you have an opportunity to talk to your sponsors. I guarantee you your sponsors will stay an extra 10 minutes to talk to you. If you want more time than that, my office door is open. When you get out of school, come right here, and I'll sit and talk with you. I would love to have a conversation about this very issue right here, whether or not you've ever given your life to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. If you have not, you need to. Bow your heads with me, please. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for this word. God, I know that this was a lot to read tonight. This was a lot to hear, a lot to learn. God, I pray that some students in this room understood what was said. God, I pray that you have spoken tonight. God, that your word was handled well and that you used it to convict our hearts. God, if there is a student in this room who is lost, who wants to talk about salvation, give them the courage to step out and talk to a sponsor or one of their friends that they know is Christian. You're good and you're worthy. Please help us realize that you're in charge and that we owe you our allegiance. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.